text before the 14th century.
440.
Well, I'll show you. I can exactly.
They're setting up. You're getting all excited. I told you in January I will talk to you. I promise you. I'm not.
What I was going to show you. That's fine. I mean, I'm not going to keep you, but I wanted to just show you quickly that this particular one is based on, look, Gospel of Mark, right? Long ending. So your one, you're saying?
The Alexandria, 440. It includes absolutely everything except for there's, I think, 2 pages missing out of the start of Matthew. There's a couple of verses missing from the end of Revelation. Apart from that, there's a little bit of damage to the side of some of the scroll.
So, what happened to those manuscripts which omitted it? Omitted it. Did they remove something which is from God?
I don't want to. No, I don't want to give. Yeah, I believe they're false. Forgeries from the devil. I just told you.
Right. So the Christians been involved in forgeries.
If they're touching it,
I wouldn't call them Christians, would I? It's the Roman Catholic Church did it.
All right. The church has been doing forgeries for a long time.
Church from the devil,
Yeah, from the devil.
Yeah, Roman Catholic Church.
But
Like I say, I'll give you all this ammunition for you to talk.
No, I'm just interested in this perspective that you have. You think they're really from the devil?
100%.
Yeah. So those people who worship.
If you listen to all your arguments against Christians.
What is my argument against
But
Christians?
when you listen to your arguments against Christians and realise what you're saying, then you'll realise they're from the devil.
So my argument that Jesus Christ worshipped a God, do you think this is from?
Listen, you get I'm not going to do it. I'll even bring you something in. I don't believe in the Trinity, so you can't have me on Trinity.
I'm asking about Trinity.
I don't believe in the Trinity.
So you believe Christ is not God?
No, I believe in one God without any partners, but I do believe in the Godhead. I do believe that there is a Father, Son and Holy Ghost, but I do not believe in the Trinity.
So what are they? Sorry, but
I can't stop doing it now. I told you, please.
You have to go, right?
You tempt me, yeah. But I promise you, I'll give you first dibs in January. I'll come out and I won't do all the same day. It's too much. Do the text first.
Yeah.
And you can do the Trinity afterwards.
So KJV is the one that you're going to be based on your discussions?
Not fully, like I say. Right. If you go the majority text that was written in the 1500s, right? That is what I believe, and you can get copies of it. It's very hard in English, but the fact that this was done, like I say, I don't want to ever lie from records. I can't remember now, but there was something like 5 or 6 groups of 15 men, and they all had 3 books each to translate from the Greek. They worked them out of each other, then they swapped them with other groups to check their translation was right. The effort that went in over the amount of years, that this I just feel is a better translation, but there are, I think it's very small, there's about 8 words or so that are different to this, to the one that I would put my
8
life.
words.
I can't remember, like I say, you're going to get me on video saying it's not true. So when I come in January, me and you, I'll have it all for you.
How about also coming prepared to discuss about Islam? Why Islam you don't consider to be from God?
Why?
Yeah. Or do you consider Islam is from God?
I question it. There was a time. I'll be honest with you. I don't cause any friction. I think I've spoken before. Like, for instance, I'm very things like you know the verse about being your wife. I think I've told you before. So I was talking to Darren. So he said a few things, and I thought, that all makes sense now. So I totally understand it now, and I think it's more because it's a symbolic thing. Doesn't matter whether you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian. There's horrible men that beat their wives. Nothing to do with scripture. So the fact that it was more, like I say, significant. If somebody hit him, it would be no different to any violent man. But that if I was the woman and I was beaten with this idea of not causing pain, I'd think to myself, oh, I know now from the scripture what this means. I know how far it's gone. Do you know what I mean? But you can get it on camera. I do think any typically English white person of my age group, you're going to have indoctrination to you and a certain outlook on life. You're going to look at the worst, and you have to really fight to not do that. So, and I see here with a lot of the Christians say some really things I would never say. Even when it comes to the racist thing, it's so obvious that when he's talking about on the left shoulder black and the right shoulder white, he's on about black as in sinful people, dark, and white as in pure and good. It's not to do with people. So, you know, I'm never going to jump on any of them verses. But, and I was, you know, I wanted to look for the truth. I would definitely call myself a Christian, 100% without any doubt. But after watching some videos, I was interested to look into whether there could be faith in the Islamic way, and the amount of people makes me think there must be something spiritual. I can't see why you'd have that many people without the help of God. But, you know, I'll be honest, I tuned into their programme. That man's really, he's turned me off of anything to do with Islam.
I mean, you should leave people and you can investigate yourself. Remember, there are people who come with different kind of experiences and approaches. If you're searching for the truth yourself, then you need to be analytical.
That really bothers me in the Quran. I'm not going to tell you word for word, so please don't take this as an insult, because I don't want to insult anyone. But the verse says something like, if you find the English part of it, if you find many contradictions, then it's not from God.
If this book, the Quran, had it been from other than God, you'd find many discrepancies or contradictions.
I know it's important to get the words right, and I don't. So I just don't believe. I find it so hard to believe that the Almighty God would make any mistakes, but to put into text, I know we can't say what many means, but it's definitely more than three.
More than one.
Well, more I'd say, okay, in most terms you'd say one, a couple, a few, many. That's all I'm saying. So I think in general,
okay, in the language, more
three
than
is a minimum.
Sure, but if you found more than one, and you will still say, look, you have something contradicting.
Yeah, but God's word says many. If you believe that's written by God. So I find now, see all these verses that most Christians want to pick on about, they kill people, they pull people apart, and there's this and that, and I agree, unless you know the background, unless you've done study, you can't make any decision based on them sort of things. You just don't know, and you've got to listen. But something like that, it's not a terrible verse by any means. I just really feel that to me is a strange verse to have.
But isn't it something that, look, if you need to be clarified about what God is trying to say, that if a book was from God, it should be free from contradictions. Yes. That's what it's trying to say. A book that talks about so many different things, so many specialties of knowledge, whether it's a history, whether it's science or sociology, anthropology. You should find that the text, message from God, guidance from God, doesn't contradict. That's what the message of the Quran is. Because if a book was man-made, of course they'll make mistakes. Of course they'll contradict each other in terms of various things they say. So the Quran is highlighting this aspect that, look, have you really pondered deeply on the Quran? If it was from other than God, that's what you expect it to have. And because it's from God, you shouldn't find anything like that.
But like I say, if we accept that, I mean, if I say Almighty God, say Allah, it's still to you that Almighty God created everything and He's right, isn't He right? So Allah, the Almighty God, I can't see why He would put in the words that you can find more than one.
No, it doesn't say more than one. It simply says ikhtilafan kathira. Okay? But the fact that there is not even the word ikhtilaf that is used in the Quranic, this particular ayah, the word ikhtilaf in that form is not found even more than once. So even if you were to be very, very technical and very literal, the Quran is saying even this, you can't find more than one ikhtilaf. And you can, when we scan through the whole of the, scan through the whole of the Quran. That word in that form is the only word in the Quran. That itself is fascinating.
and then you get, and the other thing was that I was thinking, you know, the verse that says, like I say, I don't want to misquote again, but the verse that says about that there are some verses that are clear, there's some verses that are terrific, and there are some verses that only Allah will know. And now I know I've heard Muslims slightly defend it by saying no, scholars can understand it, but when you actually translate that and put the punctuation marks in, it does say only Allah.
Yes, yes.
So I just think to myself, why? And it does go on to say that people with an evil heart or something heart will find these verses to bring things against the Quran. So I think to myself, why would I release a verse if I know I'm not God, and I know it's hard to think about, I don't want to blaspheme, but I'm just thinking if the Almighty God was to write a verse, doesn't say how many, could be just one, we don't know, but if a verse that no one can ever know, and it could be turned against you, not you, against the Quran, then that just doesn't make sense to me, but I accept that I am a man.
Sure.
And not God.
But if you were to ponder on this, these are the two types of verses in the Quran, ayat, muhkamat and mutashabihat. This mutashabihat, they're like very similar or ambiguous. There are many things of the unseen, for example, that we cannot comprehend. You cannot comprehend the very nature of paradise and hellfire. The only thing that you can comprehend is by a like comparison on this earth, that what you're familiar with, like the foods the Quran describes that you'll be eating in paradise. There's no way you can comprehend it unless you actually go there and so on. So the true meaning of what they are really is only known to God. It's not known to you because you haven't been there, you haven't understood the nature of it. I
believe it's that verse that he's talking
about.
No,
I'm just giving you an example of
and I agree with that.
Knowledge of the unseen. Some of the things when God does describe them, you just believe that yes, there will be things like that.
Yeah.
No eyes have seen, no ears have heard, no one has tasted them, but things do exist. So the true meaning of these only known to God. But we will, of course, some of these things we will appreciate and understand when we get there. There are other categories of what we call this mutashabihat verses, where because of these are totally not comprehensible by our human intellect at this age, but God informs us that they do exist and this will happen. That's why we believe in them without questioning the modality of it. For example, we believe God has a throne. Yep. And we say he is istawa al-arsh, like he is conquered over the throne, rise over the throne. Some people might literally think he's actually physically sitting on the throne. But your mind cannot comprehend that because the throne, God is independent of the throne. He is independent of any of the creation. So how do we understand these concepts of relating to very God and in relation to things that he described of this nature? Your mind can only understand a little bit of it, but not fully grasp. So the modality, when we say the modality of these things, we won't understand
I understand
and comprehend. So these things, the true meanings are known to God alone. Yeah?
And you honestly believe that when he talks about these verses in the Quran that only he will know, you think that's what he's on about? I mean, I look at it like that.
I'll give you a particular way of thinking. Do you think the finite mind can comprehend the infinite in its entirety?
No, I agree with all that.
Right. So when God describes something about himself, we can understand the concept. But to comprehend it in its entirety will be very difficult.
I'm with you 100%, and I see that. I just don't connect that verse. I think that's something that we would accept without that verse.
Yeah.
That there are no one can know God. We can, whatever he reveals to us, whatever we read about him, I agree with what you're saying, it is something that until the day we're there, God willing, we know.
To give you a particular example, again,
about being complicated, I don't think
it doesn't say complicated, it says there are verses which are clear and there are verses which are mutashabihat. Okay? They are similar in some ways. The true meaning is only for those mutashabihat known by God. And the knowledgeable persons, they say that we believe this all from God, okay? This is what they affirm. to give you an example of this, say when the Quran says لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, there is nothing whatsoever like the likeness of God. He's so unique.
I agree with you.
Now, and yet God describes to us that He's As-Sami' and Al-Basir. He's the one who sees and the one who hears. Now, to understand and comprehend that fully, and the true meaning of what it really is, I mean, it's beyond our full comprehension.
I'll look at that verse again with that mindset.
What we can understand is, yes, even though God is totally unlike us, still He sees and He hears. We don't need to now picture like the created forms of the things that acquire vision and acquire the hearing. You don't need to have an eye to see. There are things without an eye but they can still see, for example. The things without an ear, they can still, I mean, your mobile phones that you use, it doesn't really have eyes, but it still can take pictures, it can see. So just thinking literally like God has vision capacity like us will be a mistake. Okay? So the true meaning of what God is intending on this is only known to God, because that is His nature. That is His eternal nature, that we as a finite individual cannot comprehend the infinite. But we can accept that yes, we affirm this is the truth.
Maybe, like I say, I'll read that verse with that thought now and see how it means to me. I mean, last time I was here I was given a Quran, and I do look at it, and I'm definitely not trying to find, I don't want to find anything to hate. See, the verses I'm bringing up, I don't think you've probably heard a Christian try and bring them up as that sort of reason. And if I bring a list, we can do things in whatever order you want, whether you want to first talk about my scripture, then about yours, then about the concept of 3 in 1, how I understand it, things like that. We can do all that. The other sort of verses that get to it, they're all quite similar. The royal we side of things, there's lots of things about that. And what was the other main one? I can't remember now, but I've got them written down, and like I say, they're all reasonably things that just need explaining. But the Royal We one, I really struggle with that. And maybe if I bring up a few examples, you can try and point out to me what they are. I mean, it's helpful. Like I say, I totally saw I don't want to keep saying that verse because people bring it up terribly, but the first one I talked about. I fell hook, line and sinker into that. I can see it. There's a process you're going through, and because that process is written, and because the man and the woman both know the Quran, then she realises she's on that process. So like I say, I think it would mean so much more when you now reach the last step than if somebody just physically hit you. Because like I say, there's nasty people everywhere in the world. So I grasped it. I thought that was so much. But the one you're saying about the different verses, and now I am seeing it in a different light. Like I say, I think I'll have to read that one and listen, maybe bring a few more to you.
Yeah, so there are various categories of the mutashabihat verses. For example, when God says, prescribe punishment for something like this, categorically clear, you can't interpret different ways. When God says He is one, don't say 3, categorically. But other things which are described in a way, there is room for interpretation. Okay, room for interpretation. So there are scholars who will actually tell you which verses falls under the unclear verses and why they do fall under unclear verses. So who goes after those unclear verses? The Quran actually describes who this verse. Those only who have a disease in their heart, they run. They're looking for this. The crooked hearts. They're after these things. So we know that some people are not interested in clear, unambiguous guidance. They're only after something that they want to find something and say maybe it means this and maybe it means that.
Yeah. I mean, then there's obviously, I don't like even bringing him up because I don't agree with a lot of what he says or anything, and I only really found.
Maybe you need to speak to him face to face again.
No, I'm about a real anti-Islamic person.
I see.
I got onto it by mistake after watching one of not SCDawah, What's the large guy?
The taller guy.
Yeah.
Muhammad Hijab.
Yeah, I was watching their video they put out and then that leads you on the thing to other videos, doesn't it, on YouTube and other videos, doesn't it? Anyway, so I watched one with Christian Prince, and I've watched a few since. I've watched quite a few, and I do feel that it doesn't wash me some of it. But this one, there was one, and the man, he seemed so genuine. I mean, it could have been a setup. You don't know these things. Because he came on as a Muslim, and within about 30 minutes, he changed his mind. And he almost supported the Trinity within Islam. Everything Christian Prince said, he sort of like went along with, and but it did strike a chord with me, I'll be honest with you. So I just note down a few things, and whenever we're ready, we can talk about them sensibly.
Yeah. Now, this particular individual has been, making a lot of noise in the internet.
Yeah.
But he's been now adequately being responded. You'll see there's a YouTube channel you should watch called Farid Response, F-A-R-I-D, Farid Response, and he's putting up, short videos showing the double standards, the hypocrisies and lies specifically, because the way this particular individual CP was dealing with people in his show, because he's in control. He mutes them, he controls them, and he deals with people who don't even know what is being said. So
the last one I watched was an imam, a sheikh rather, forget his name, and he was trying to debate him over the women's ribs and the men's backbone. And like you say, he kept cutting him off. And but he eventually got his word across. And what he said to it was, it almost gave Christian Prince ammunition, because he then pounced on something. But he was saying that all of the hadiths that he was quoting very close to the time of the Quran and that, and it was about the fact that science had physically changed since then. So now they're trying to interpret the hadiths differently. So Christian Prince really went on that, almost like we all changing things. But he didn't say Allah changed his words, he didn't say the Quran changed his words, because that verse, it's not as clear as he makes it out. When you put the hadiths, it goes down one road. But like we say, those people that wrote the hadiths with their heart in the right place, still only had the knowledge they had, because they didn't have Allah telling them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so they could go down that road.
So do you think CP had a point in there? Because I have discussed this particular verse in the Speaker's Corner several times.
I've listened to him before and I've thought he's right. But like when he turned around and said this, that the people who wrote the hadiths, they didn't do, they only had the knowledge they had. So they've taken the verse from the Quran, which isn't crystal clear, and they've put into it the way they have. Now, as time moves on, you can say, well, obviously a woman doesn't have sperm, sort of thing, whatever. So, obviously, it doesn't mean that.
Woman does have what we call ovum.
Yeah.
So the Arabic that is used, referring to the nutfa for man and nutfa for woman, is applicable. So whether you want to now scientifically call it ovum and sperm, it's just semantics.
That's what I'm saying. So
but they do have this reproductive substance.
So he tried to make out that because it could be changed now, people's opinion, it was a really bad thing. But if you're not changing the word of God, just what people interpreted the word of God, I don't think there's any harm with that. Because unless you had a revelation from God, you can't change that, obviously. But if you're just the best of your ability, with the knowledge you've got, you might eventually change things without it mattering at all to the Quran.
So there's two things on here. One is about what the Quran says about the subject of embryology, how babies are born, and if there are hadiths which explains it. Personally, I think both of them are incongruent, are in conformity with the scientific understanding, and that's why I specifically talk about this subject. And I've spoken to many people on this issue in this park alone. The problem with certain individuals, these are critics who firstly don't know much about science themselves, and they would misinterpret what the Quran is saying or misinterpret what the Hadith is saying. That's the problem. So let's leave this particular individual.
Anyway,
he's a nobody.
In January, I'll definitely come and find you.
Yeah. Remind me your name.
Andrew, sorry.
Andrew and Mansur.
Yeah, Mansur.
So it's a pleasure speaking to you, and we hope
we'll have a list
to
do things slowly.
talk again.
Yeah. Like I say, 'cause
Basically, remember, this Bible that you believe in, we believe that Christ was given revelation, the good news, the evangel, and he was a prophet and a messenger. What you don't believe, the difference between us, is whether there was another prophet to come after him and whether there's another revelation like the Quran. Maybe we should focus more on whether indeed the Quran is from God or not, whether indeed Islam is God's final revelation or not.
there's so much evidence though that I've got, that I feel I've got. You know,
We can talk about them.
I'll bring up, and then if you want to show me that I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. I can always admit it's the most important thing for every person here is the truth.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And we're in a modern time now where children are being taught that truth isn't even. You hear some of these atheists, oh, there's no real truth, and I might not even be here. I might be in a computer game and all this, right? But the fact is, truth is black or white. There's nothing other than right and wrong. You know, there's no choice. You can't put any shade to it at all. And if that's your starting point, that's a foundation. And you've got to go from there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk
Thank
again.
you. Sorry.
Take care. It's all right.
I've got to say to
That's right.
I've been watching you for it's my first time I'm here. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
let me give this away.